Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Once more together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Once more. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for being with us here today, and thank you everyone who has joined us today. At Bhakti Center, I see some faces that I haven't seen before, and I think maybe you're here because Maharaj is here, and all the faces that we have seen. Thank you for making this your spiritual home and being here with us tonight. We are so grateful and so fortunate to have Bhakti Vigyana Goswami here with us tonight at Bhakti Center. Marge, have you ever been here before?
Oh yes.
Yes.
In 2019.
In 2019. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's so wonderful to have you back with us. I think everyone who's here knows Maharaj, but if they don't, he was actually born in Tashkent in the former Soviet Union, and he took to spiritual life in 1980 during the communist era when the Committee for State Security, the KGB, was harassing all spiritual practitioners. And despite these tremendous obstacles that Maharaj was facing, he was a scientist and a Moscow State University graduate and postgraduate student at the Institute of Molecular Biology. So he decided to make the Hare Krishna mantra. He decided to perform an experiment with that, and that changed his life. So he committed to this practice of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga. And from 1988 until 1995, he was actually head of the translation department of the North European BBT, translating Srila Prabhupada's books into Russian and other languages of the Soviet bloc. And in 1995, he officially took lead of the society in Russia. He acted as a member of ISKCON's governing body commission, like the management of the entire global society, from 1997 until 2017, when he took the GBC emeritus position. And his main zonal responsibilities were Moscow and most of the Russian regions, as well as Armenia, Georgia, Israel, and South Korea. And he's also a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and took sannyas in 2001. He travels throughout the world sharing Krishna consciousness and serving as a spiritual teacher and leader to so many. And he's going to be speaking on a topic tonight which is so dear to us at the Bhakti Center and to Radhanath Swami, on community care. I've been sharing with everyone that last time Radhanath Swami was here, Doyal Duranga, the executive director, actually asked Radhanath Swami what was the number one thing that we should be focusing on at Bhakti Center, and Maharaj said, taking care of the devotees. So Maharaj is going to speak with us on that topic tonight. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I feel a little nervous, but nevertheless I'll try my best. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namashrishtam Manumati Sachiputra Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Rupurim Madhurim Goshtavatim Radha Kunda Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Yantah Pravishya Mama Vachimam Prasuptam Sanjivayata Kila Shakti Darak Swadhamna Anyam Shahasta Charana Shravanat Vagadim Pranannamo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhya Swasyastu Vishwasya Kalah Prasidatam Dayantu Bhutani Shivam Mitho Diyamanas Chabadram Bhajatata Toksaja Aveshyatam No Matirayahai Tukim. So, again, thank you very much. It's a big honor for me to speak in front of all of you. And before we start speaking about the principles of devotee care, which is very important, we should understand very clearly what are the obstacles. Unless we understand what are the obstacles, natural obstacles, due to circumstances we are living in, and the whole atmosphere, the culture, the attempts to build some strong community will not be successful, because in any path to achieve the goal, we have to be very clear about the obstacles. That's the standard understanding of Vedic philosophy. In Vedic philosophy, you have to know where you are now, what goal you want to achieve, and what are the obstacles, what is the process or the path which is leading you from the place where you are now to the goal you want to achieve. And one of the most important aspects, the fourth aspect of this, is to know the obstacles. Actually, community is a very natural thing. As human beings, we are social beings. We need society. We are not self-sufficient. And society is a natural organization of human beings, because everyone has his own unique talents, his own unique contribution. And altogether we are making it complete whole. Maybe not complete whole, but at least some semblance of complete whole, when everyone is productively contributing to the needs of others. So we can see that from the very ancient time till today, people are living in communities. You know, if we are alone, we will not survive for a long time. We need some other people. So in one sense, there is no need to speak about community, because it's a natural organization of any humans. But at the same time, we can see, again, very clearly, that at this day and age, we have to make an extra endeavors to create some sort of community. Why? Because the whole atmosphere of the society is actually not very conducive for this. That's what Srila Prabhupada encapsulated in his pranam mantra, where he says, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. I'm coming here to these countries, Western countries, which are infested or infected by this Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. And it's not that this infection is outside us. This infection is deeply rooted inside us. We are being conditioned soul. The very definition of conditioned soul, it means that we are depending on the external conditions. We are something like this little animal, which is called chameleon. I've seen it once in my life. You know, it crawls or it runs from one place to another place, and he takes exactly the color of the environment. So being conditioned means something like this. When we are in certain conditions, we are, or in certain environment, we become dependent on this environment, and we take shape. Even not consciously, subconsciously, we are taking the shape of the environment so that we will not be too much, different from the environment that we are in. Because we all know in subconscious level, somewhere deep inside, that if we are too much different, it's kind of dangerous. You know, we become a very tempting target for other people, and again, it takes a lot of energy to be too much different. Of course, being Hare Krishnas, we're anyway too much different, but still, we are not too much different Hare Krishnas living in America. We're still kind of, adopting some customs of the land and some ideas of the land. Not necessarily consciously, but subconsciously. And again, the problem with this is that originally the Krishna's culture, the culture of Krishna consciousness, is extremely personal. But because we are living in this atmosphere which is infected by these ideas and conceptions of impersonalism, not even conceptions, not so much conceptions. It's not that, when Prabhupada says that I'm liberating these people who are living in the Western countries and they're all, they're all devout Buddhists. No. We are habitual impersonalists. We are not philosophical impersonalists. We are, in our day-to-day dealings, we are impersonalists. So we have to understand it very clearly, and that's the main obstacle in all our attempts to build some relationship, because relationship is only possible between person and person. And the original concept of God, the Hare Krishna philosophy, Gaudiya Vaishnava, out of all Vaishnavas, we have the most personal God. Krishna is extremely personal. He is on this extreme, On one extreme, we have Buddhist void, which is extremely impersonal. And on the other extreme, we have Krishna who is playing flute, so who is smiling all the time. And he's much more personal than Vishnu of Sri Vaishnava tradition, and even Lord Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra is, he's God, but he's much more reserved in a sense. And the variety of relationship he's entering with different living entities is quite restricted. Whereas, according to the definition of Srila Rupa Goswami, Krishna is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. He is the sum total of all the rasas, of all the different relationships, with all the flavors and different, tinges and different varieties of relationship. So basically, when we're talking about Vaishnava community, or more specifically, or more exactly, Gaudiya Vaishnava community, we're talking about very close, deep, and personal relationship which are uniting us together with Krishna in the center. We are personal servants of personal God who have naturally very personal relationship between us, and this personal relationship become the means for us to enter into personal relationship with God. Because to enter into personal relationship with God from our condition on the earth, it's too much of a jump. It's a huge leap. So to enter into this personal relationship, we have to really kind of rehearse ourselves in this environment. We have to enter into very personal relationship with each other and try to feel how is it to be person in the context of personal relationship. So, but again, the very deep problem is that it's not the philosophy of the modern society. Of course, the philosophy is there, and it's a philosophy of materialism, which is ultimately Shunyavada. Materialism is nothing but covered Shunyavada, because the Buddhists, they say the ultimate reality is void, and materialists, they say that ultimate reality is there was some matter which was condensed in a point, and then this point exploded, and then the whole material creation is a result of this Big Bang. So we have post-traumatic psychology disorder due to this big trauma. So, but the idea again is the same. It's ultimately nothing is there. There is no God. There is no absolute truth. There is no persons. We're all machines. Ultimately, this materialistic philosophy is the underlying idea is that we're all machines. We're all robots. And therefore, they are enamored by this idea of artificial intelligence, that at one point they will create computers which will be like robots or like human beings, and it's all so absurd. But because this idea is so deeply rooted in their heart, they really believe that it's possible. Whereas we know that what is the difference between us and the program? The difference between us and the program is that there is a person behind it. And there is impersonal mind with its program. The mind is a machine, body is a machine, intelligence is a machine. We have quite elaborate machinery, but ultimately, deep down, we are a beautiful person, beautiful spiritual entity, which is hankering to enter into personal relationship with our own origin, with God, who is also personal, and not only personal, extremely personal, waiting for us and seeking our personal touch in relationship with Him. So, besides this initial idea which formed Western society and which gave the Western society its shape, the shape which we have now, all the institutes of this society they are progressively more and more impersonal. Like yesterday, I was in a big hospital in Toronto, in big modern hospital, and it's just unbelievable how the whole atmosphere of this hospital is totally impersonal. You have all these machines and all these tubes and all these displays with and the person who is not really a person, but just a robot in a machine, he's laying there and, he's surrounded by all this equipment. And the whole feel is really something, I don't know how even to explain this. You losing, a big part of your personality by being in this mechanical environment. And we can see that this mechanical impersonal environment, it's not only medicine. Medicine is one manifestation of this nirvishesha shunyavadi. The big skyscrapers is just another manifestation of this nirvishesha shunyavadi. The same skyscrapers, the same people who are living there in little cubicles there in these apartments in the big, totally impersonal architecture, impersonal way of living, and most importantly, the modern society, the latest inventions, making us progressively more and more impersonal, because we are mostly dealing not with people, but with the gadgets, with the machines. Our life is more and more in these machines, not in our personal interaction. And machines, it's very easy to deal with them. You push the button and, the result is predictable. And it's kind of easy, and because we are so used to deal with the machines, it's very difficult for us to deal with persons, because there is no buttons in the persons, Of course, there is, there is some hidden button, you push this and you get the reaction. But they're not so obvious, and again, it's not so predictable. Human beings, despite of, again, totally impersonal philosophy, which is very popular now, this, I don't know if you know him, there's one ideologist of the modern day and era, Yuval Noah Harari. He says, people have no free will. It's just machine. Just machine, whatever it's just an illusion in your head that you have free will. The good news is that people do have free will. As much as they're persons, as much they are putting the stress into this part of our personality. Of course, as much as we are conditioned by this body and mind and everything, and just living according to the programs displayed in our mind and in our body, yes, we are machines to a greater extent. But still there is a free will. And this free will is a big problem, because this free will means that I approach some person and I expect something from him, and he gives completely unexpected response to my approach to him. It's not 100% predictable. With machine, it's simple, I don't know what I did with this machine. Okay. So, but with machine, it's just just a few buttons, and you can expect something. Whereas while dealing with people, it's much more difficult to deal with people, because you really have to respect people. You have to, and again, because of this impersonal philosophy or impersonal culture which is being developed, we're trying to deal with people as if they were machines. We're trying to exploit people. We are sometimes we have very great anger if people don't do what we want them to do, but people are people, they have free will. And to build community means to respect this completely, totally unpredictable nature of human being, and expect that that what you expect will not be fulfilled. It's much more difficult. So, we see that in the modern business, again, people are reduced to some function. You go to any company and they will give you very, exact program which you have to follow. You're not person there. Nobody expects you to be the person. Nobody needs your personality there. It's just some hindrance. So what I mean to say is that it's a big problem for us to build community because of this environment. And because of this, because of this whole culture which has been gradually created. Like teachers in school, they say that when these gadgets were invented, children, it's very difficult for them to enter into a relationship because they're not used to it. They feel very insecure. It's a natural feeling when you are used to deal with something which is very predictable. And all of a sudden you have to enter into relationship with somebody who is totally unpredictable, who will not follow what you want and will have his free will and whatever. And at one point will manifest some emotions, and it's sometimes it's a big shock, to deal with somebody's emotions. It's just too much for modern people, because they are not used to it. And because of this, very important thing, one other important consequence of this whole scenario which we are living in is that losing this personal contact with reality. Like if we look in the Vedic culture. In the Vedic culture, everything was personal. Rivers were personal. It's not just a river. There is a goddess. It's not just flow of water. There is goddess. You have to deal with this river. You have to pray. You have to enter in a certain mood. And the animals were of course persons, and the trees were persons. Everything was personal. But now we're living in this impersonal thing, and it's extremely difficult. But as I said, one very important consequence of this is that we are ourselves losing our personality, and we are losing the touch with ourselves. We are not really in touch with ourselves. This is the number one complaints of all the professional psychologists. People come to them and they say, I don't know who I am. And this problem, this identity crisis, when people, they don't know who they are, is also a great impediment to enter into personal relationship, because entering into personal relationship implies that you know very clearly who you are, who this other person is, and what kind of relationship has to be built between yourself. Relationship is a very specific thing, and when this identity, therefore, the first thing which Krishna says to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, he says, you remember who you are, you forget it. This whole crisis which you experience now on the battlefield of Kurukshetra is because you forget what is your duty and who you are. And therefore you don't know what to do. You don't know what is your role in this whole scenario. So that's a very brief description of the situation which we have to deal with. People are feeling insecure, and another feature, perhaps very important feature of this microphone manifests some free will, some unpredictable behavior. But it's kind of easy to to put him back on track.
Hold his back. It creates.
Something else I wanted to say. Forget. It's okay. I can move myself closer. There was something else, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It's gloomy enough picture to to understand how difficult it is. And that's exactly why, yeah, one more thing which I wanted to say about describing this situation. Because of this nirvishesha shunyavadi atmosphere which is very, very impersonal and definitely influencing us in one way or another, people still need relationship. We're all emotionally dependent on other people. We need support of other people. We definitely need it. So relationships are still there. But one effect of this whole thing is that relationship, even though they exist, they become somewhat shallow. They're not going deeper. You know, if we see the examples of personal relationship from Mahabharata, for example, you know, people for their personal relationship, for the sake of personal relationship, for the sake of maintaining personal relationship in a certain way, they were ready to sacrifice their life. You know, that was so deep. You know, they had this very deep identity, and this identity was defined by their personal relationship, and that was very valuable for them. So what is happening in our culture when we see, yes, people enter into this personal relationship because it's difficult, because they're not really used to it, because they don't really know how to do it, the relationship break very easily. It's cheap. You know, even marriage relationship, you know, I entered into one marriage relationship and, you know, it didn't work, you know, and then another, you know, and Prabhupada used to say that if people, you know, they're a little uncomfortable, little impediment in their personal relationship, and the relationship breaks very easily. Because of this, of not understanding that real relationship is the labor. It's a work which we have to really put into this. You know, somebody recently told me that there was one lady, she was not a devotee, but of course this scenario is possible. And she had 4 marriages or something like this. And when somebody asked her, why did you have 4 marriages or 5 marriages or whatever, she said, it's better to have 5 happy marriages than 1 unhappy. You know, that was her observation. Rather than suffer through the life. But then again, it's just a manifestation, or it's just a proof that people are ill-equipped in our culture to build some deep relationship. Superficial, yes, no problem. Smile, you know, keep smiling, this and that. Have a good day, that's not a problem. But community is not built on this have a good day motto. It's much deeper, you know, because community means commitment. Community means that, and commitment means commitment, you know. The deep relationship imply commitment and imply sacrifices from our side, you know, for the sake of relationship. Because that's the only way to really build deep relationship if we're ready to sacrifice for this. It's not just, you read some teach yourself book, how to build community, and here you are, The few recipes are there, the few simple guidelines are there, you follow these guidelines and miracle is there. Loving community is manifesting itself out of nothing. No, it's a work. It's a labor. It's actually a very grateful labor, but still we have to be mentally prepared to do this. And that's why people like some religious people who actually value this community spirit and understand how important it is for our emotional and even physical, intellectual, and ultimately spiritual development, how relationships are instrumental for this. Relationship is not just something optional. Deep relationship is the very foundation of our physical, emotional, intellectual, and ultimately spiritual well-being. Without relationship, it's a fantasy. Srila Prabhupada says that somebody who thinks that he can become Krishna conscious on his own, sitting in his little apartment somewhere in Manhattan, he's just, it's just a hallucination. He says it's just illusion. It's a big illusion. We can help each other in a very significant way, being a community or society of devotees in all these respects, and ultimately in spiritual sense as well. To really become Krishna conscious, we need to see examples of people, and not just abstract examples, not just examples like there are plenty of examples in our books of great devotees, but we need to see living examples, and not just great devotees, but great devotees who are caring about us, whom we really feel that they care about us. And this feeling is a source of great enthusiasm and great happiness in life. If we are part of something bigger than ourselves, every human being has this very strong psychological need to feel that he is a part of the bigger whole. And especially, and this is what, all these countries and all these parties, they do, but it's essentially also to feel that we are part of the bigger whole, which is good, which is benevolent, which is for good, which is working for the good of people. So again, community is not an option. It's not something which we not an option in the sense that I may want it or I may not want it. Community is something which is extremely necessary in all levels of our existence. And therefore, all these people who really value, who really understand deeply, very deeply, the value of this deep relationship and community and everything, what they do, like Amishes, they go outside. They don't live, Amishes, as far as I know, they don't live in New York City. They understand that they will not be able to survive in this atmosphere. Not they. The bigger whole which they managed to build and maintain over the centuries will not be able to survive in this atmosphere. And they live in the countryside where the atmosphere is much more conducive for being personal, and they still avoid all these gadgets. It's not enough to live in the countryside. You may remain in complete Mayavadi Buddhist or whatever, living in the countryside as well. But one precaution which they take is that they minimize. I don't know if they avoid it completely, but sometimes they do avoid, as far as I know, some of these communities. And of course, for us modern people who are brought up in big cities, it's not really an attractive option. If we say that to build a community you have to move somewhere, and yes, some people at one point of their life they may develop this desire, but ultimately it's not practical. So what we have to solve, this problem which we have to solve, it's not an easy problem. We want to build a functional community in dysfunctional society, in a society which is very impersonal, in a culture which is very impersonal, and we are more or less assimilating this energy of impersonalism, which are very widespread in society on a daily basis. So it basically means that the amount of work which we have to put into building this community not doubles, but I don't know, it multiplies many times. Like when you come to Mumbai and you're there in Chowpatty temple, you can feel this amazing atmosphere and feeling of community. People are not only nice to you, nice we can be, and that's not a problem, but what is the depth of this nicety? When this mask of nicety will be taken off you due to some inevitable circumstances of some problems, but you feel that, I remember once Govinda Prabhu, no, it was not Govinda, it was Gorgopal. He came to Moscow, and he was staying in our ashram, and and at one point I entered his room. He was staying in a small room in the ashram, and I saw him, he's sitting there looking at some picture and crying. And I came closer to him, and I saw that he has a picture of this another brahmachari from Govinda Prabhu from Chowpatty temple, and he's looking at it. He said, I feel so much separation from him. He's crying, really crying. So who of us is capable of doing this? Who of us is really capable of such feelings? Capable of building such relationship where the separation with people becomes the source of our tears. And we are talking about, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his high ecstasies, and we may give a nice lecture about Anarpita Charim Chirat, Karuna Avatirna Kala, Natojval Rasam Svabhakti Shriyam, and this and that, but how equipped we are to experience all these emotions. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought this, amazingly beautiful emotions. He opened the realm of these emotions to all of us, but are we really equipped to experience them? Even while we're chanting Hare Krishna mantra, or while we're in kirtan and this and that. So again, because of this. So what I want to say is that it's possible, but we have to understand that it's more difficult here than, for example, in Mumbai. Because people still there in India, they are much more personal. I know many Mayavadi sannyasis in India. These Mayavadi sannyasis in India, they are much more personal than devotees, Hare Krishna devotees in the West. Extremely personal people, very nice and very cordial and open-hearted. So, we are quite far from the original soil, which is our original land is the land of love. And love means personal relationship. It's nothing but a very deep personal relationship. When the relationship at one point becomes so deep that we call them love. That's what it is. It should start at some point with some distance, but when it becomes closer and closer and closer, at one point we call it love. That's what love is. So if we understand, first, to say this, I'm speaking, for how long I should speak? Okay. If you're bored, please let me know. So what I want to say, I will say a few things, probably common sense things, which you all know, but in the context of what I said before, what it means and what we should try to do, to overcome this natural obstacle or unnatural obstacle to natural, desire to build some community and to feel ourselves as a part of a bigger whole. One thing most important and crucial is that we should really understand the importance of it. The more we understand the importance of it, the more deeply we understand, because, again, this is in itself is a big achievement. Because the modern society is built in such a way that people, they, at least for some time, they may not feel that something is lacking in their life. They're living this impersonal life. They're lonely, but there are so many gadgets, they don't have friends, but they have little, iPhone, and this is a good friend, and they can spend the whole life dealing with this. So, for some time, people may feel, it's okay, it's all right, I'm okay, I'm no problem. I have no problem, everything is fine in my life. So, and of course, wise people come. I'm sure Srila Radhanath Maharaj comes and he stresses this again and again and again. And it's important to hear this, because by hearing this, it really goes deeper than even just our conscious mind. When we hear sadhu, that's the real purpose of sadhu sangha. The words of sadhu, the vibration of the voice of sadhu, they go deeper than our conscious mind. They change something in a deeper level, in subconscious level. And they definitely plant this desire within our heart. But again, at least on the intellectual level, we really have to understand that this is very important, and this is the priority. Because unless we understand that this is a priority, we will not find time for this. And relationship building, community building, it's a very time-consuming exercise. It's not something which you can do by the way, or whatever. You have to invest your time into relationship. Because ultimately that's what relationship means. You spend your time together and you know each other, and you open your heart to each other, and gradually this magic takes place, when something you not become just a lonely person living in New York, but you become enriched by this very deep relationship with somebody, or with being a part of community. So the first condition, the first requirement, the most important requirement is we have to be ready to invest time in it. Like sometimes people, I was a part of GBC for 21 years, and I was watching how GBC works. And of course, there are so many complaints sometimes, in different pockets of our society, GBC this, GBC that. But the main problem is that there is not enough time spent together to build the relationship, and therefore there is no really, identity in the GBC as such. GBC, community means identity. It's a collective identity. We ourselves have our identity, and if we are, well-developed, if we have this well-developed identity, then we can enter into some productive relationship with other people. And ultimately, the success of community is that there is some identity, some bigger identity, super identity. And it can be different with different flavors, It's not necessarily that this community will have the same identity as the community somewhere else. You may be the same Hare Krishna devotees, but still you may have your different, mood and flavor. But again, what I want to say is that the first and foremost condition is that it requires time spent together, and for you to spend time, which is very precious and valuable, you really have to value this and give the high-ranking value to this community. Unless we understand that this is something which I need, which is very valuable for me, we will not spend time for this. We will just, if we have some extra time, no problem. But it's not going to work like this. It requires time, and time requires for us to spend time for something. We really have to understand, yes, that's important, that's what I want. At least on some personal level, not necessarily immediately with this. So that's the first thing which I wanted to say. Perhaps second thing which is required is also very difficult. This first thing is difficult. Living in New York with so much pressures of, time is a luxury nowadays. We hardly have any free time, and if we have little free time, we have our priorities to use. So this spiritual home, it should be so attractive that people should come here and spend as much time as possible. Then the community will develop, for sure. The next condition, of course, is a very difficult one. We should start building community with something, and it basically means interest in each other. If we see somebody as a person, everyone is a unique person, and everyone has his story. I'm actually a very fortunate, lucky person. I meet with many people, I know many people. And some people come for me, accepting me as their spiritual guide or whatever. And I usually, the first thing which I ask them to tell their story. And it's really amazing thing, if you ask person to tell his or her story. The story of life, story how he or she became a devotee and how they were searching for the meaning in life and this and that. It's usually very unique story, and you can see how Krishna works in different ways through different people, and how he's actually inspiring everyone from within to search for something higher. So this other thing, which is very important, is, to really give up one's insecurity and one's inability to enter into a personal relationship, because it's kind of scary. Even Srila Prabhupada says that people become impersonalists. In Bhagavad Gita he says this, because of the fear of personal relationship. Because they had so much pain which they received from personal relationship. Because of this whole unhealthy atmosphere we're living in, personal relationship become the source of greatest pain for us. So much sufferings we take, and therefore we are very, shy to do it. We feel very insecure and really not jumping into it. And again, it requires, if you feel that there is somebody who can enrich your life, your spiritual life, and even your material life, in a good sense, by being your close associate, then we really have to, to overcome this tendency to neglect people, or to look at people or judge people from the very superficial point of view. Usually that's what it is, and that's the problem of any society, when the people in the society, especially when the society becomes a little bigger, we don't really know each other deeply, and not only we don't know each other deeply, we don't want to know each other deeply. Who cares? We don't have an interest in other people. Of course, you can have very close relationship with many people. Close relationship is a privilege which you may have only with a few people around you. We don't have too much facilities to have very close, unless you are a saintly person like Radhanath Maharaj. It always amazes me how he manages to enter into deep personal relationship by knowing person for 7.5 minutes, and and seeing him for the first time. And all of a sudden you feel, and the person feels that there is something going on, and that's why it's so enlivening to be with him, to be in his presence, because you feel that you are not just a machine, you feel that you're somebody, and you're somebody who is very dear and very unique. So but again, on the level of society, this interest towards other people, if we take little bigger society, it's translated into word which is respect. Because what is respect? Respect basically means that we respect the freedom of other people. Respect their individuality, respect their uniqueness, we respect them. And this culture of respect is very much lacking in modern society. Again, because of this overriding principle of impersonalism. The respect is becoming more and more difficult concept for us to understand, because respect means that there are different grades of respect. Respect is not a uniform kind of feeling or thing. It's a difficult thing. But if the respect is there, if the proper respect is there, if people understand that I am respected here in a proper way, respected for what I have to be respected. Because if you sometimes you try to artificially show some, make a show some respect, and still it's not satisfying. But when the people feel that they are properly respected, and therefore even in Srimad Bhagavatam there is so much description of how much respect should be given to different grades of living entities. The whole section in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the end of 29th chapter of the third canto, is there the evolution of the consciousness with the idea that according to the how evolved the living entity is, the extent of respect should be given accordingly to the level of evolution of such person. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur very interestingly said that he, in his prayer to Gurudev Kripa Bindadiya, he says, please give me the strength to respect everyone how he deserves to be respected. He or she deserves to be respected. Jata jata. How to give me the strength, the strength, the bala, the ability, the intelligence to offer the proper respect to every person. Again, so this concept is, again, very difficult because we're not trained in it. We are not really trained in this science of human relationship, which are based on respect. So this culture of respect is another area which is very important, especially in the beginning. We should know each other, who, as much as possible, try to know each other, because what kind of community it is if nobody knows anyone. It's not a community. Community means and the very minimum level of respect is to remember the name of a person. Because again, he is his individuality, his person, and means he has his name, which is distinguishing him from other people. And this is the minimum level of respect, to remember the name of the person and to remember something personal about this person. So that's another thing which could and should be said before we're talking about some more deeper levels of relationship building. So because we only have time till 8, maybe we can have some questions now, because I already said a lot. I don't know if this is what you wanted me to speak about, but I thought of if my speech was appropriate to your original idea.
It very much was, Maharaj. Thank you so much. It's exactly what we needed to hear.
Okay.
And yeah, we can open up. We have a microphone to pass around for questions.
I can speak out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for the lecture. You said about the spending of time together with devotees, which is one of the foundations for the community. And what is the best way to spend together this time? What is the best way to influence that positive atmosphere in the community to spend time together? What is the best way? Several ways.
Well, in Chowpatty temple there is this saying which Maharaj, I don't know if it's his or not, a family which eats together or stays together, family which prays together, stays together, family which sings together or dances together. So kirtan, of course, prayer when we come together for certain purpose is also very important, and we have some prayerful mood. And eating together is also very important. Eating together, it's a community building exercise. If we do it again in a proper way, in a very personal way, and even serving, when we serve, it's again very personal. Whatever, if if we try to really tune ourselves that I'm a person, despite of all the circumstances, and everyone else around me is a person. In Vedic culture, still to this day, the musicians before starting playing on harmonium, they just touch harmonium. They pray to harmonium because it's also a person. It's not just a machine. And they worship. They do puja to their mridangas, and of course nowadays they do puja to their new cars and so, but again, it's a personal touch. So if I'm not saying that we should do puja to each other. It will be very we come and everyone but eating is some sort of a puja, or if we're feeding somebody, because that's the main part of puja, when we feed the deity, when we give some prasadam. So if we give some prasadam, that's what Srila Rupa Goswami says, bhunkte bodhjayati chaiva, giving prasad and accepting prasad, serving prasad and taking prasadam together, it's very important. So that's different ways. But of course, kirtan is the most important, our most important thing. But also talking with, like we have some educational projects in Russian language. And one of them is japa meditation school, where people for 6 years, they learn how to do japa. And that was the idea, to bring working on japa in their lives, not just few days on japa retreat. So, and they have some webinars, but not so many. Mostly it's practice and discussion. And they have little groups, 5-7 people. And amazing, after just discussing how they're doing with their job and discussing the material of the webinars, after a couple of years, people again and again and again, I hear it and I'm amazed myself. They say that our real life is in this japa meditation school, even though it is online project. It's mostly online project, but people, they develop actually what happened with this, and that's amazing, the community of devotees was built because of this process, because they are regularly, once a week, they meet on Zoom, sometimes more often, sometimes they expand it just because the energy is built up. So the whole community, around 2,000 people take part in this project. So, and it's not that they all know each other, but the spirit is the spirit of community, and they say this our real life is there, and then they invent their own ways of how to meet with each other, and they say, and there are some other examples like this. So if we just, in a small group, we meet together regularly, which is very important, and we discuss something which is has some spiritual significance, that really helps us to build very deep relationship.
Practical question about this
We are trying to do it in English, yeah. We are trying to do it in English as well, but it's still in its inceptional point. But yeah, there are groups from other countries, Russian speaking, of course, but they're all Russian speaking. But there is an idea. I think it's a lot of already translated, but I don't know. The whole success of this project is that there is a dedicated team of people who are working on it to facilitate this. So that's a big question. But anyway, let's see. Yes.
You said something super interesting. You said that the Mayavadi sannyasis are more personal than the Western devotees. And I was thinking about something. What I see here, and that's not just in like spiritual life, but across the board, it's more goal-oriented than people-oriented. People interact for a goal. Once the goal's over, I see a lot of like people aren't thinking about people outside.
Of course.
Context. How do we mix the two? There's a lot to do. So how do we be goal-oriented and still think about people outside of the mission?
That's why it's very interesting. I was thinking about this today. The first teaching of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, which is very difficult for us to understand, is that don't be attached to the fruits of your action. Try to learn how to act without being goal-oriented. And still work very productively and very, sincerely. Yes, in the Western society we are very much goal-oriented, and because we are so much goal-oriented, there are many consequences of this. First of all, we are hardly living in present. We always live with the goal. And when we achieve goal, we realize that no, some other goal is there. So we don't live at present. And it means that we don't live. We are always in the future, we are dreaming about achieving this goal, how happy we will become, but we are hardly living at present. Another problem of this is that while being too much goal-oriented, we don't understand that the process to achieve this goal is significant in itself. Being too much goal-oriented means that we are not really doing every act which we do as something which is very fulfilling for us. We are not really concentrated on the work itself, but more on the goal. And therefore Krishna says, the first thing which he says to Arjuna, karmani eva dikaraste maphaleshu kadachana. You have adhikar, you have the right to do work. And try to do it as good as possible. The result will come, the goal will come. Because if you are concentrated and if you are doing the work which you like to do, the result will come inevitably. You will achieve your goal. You will excel in your work. There is no doubt about it. But by doing this, you will feel it will be much more fulfilling for yourself, because you will take the pleasure or the fulfillment of doing the work itself. The goal which you will achieve, the result which you will get as a result of it, will be just additional surprise to you. But you are already fulfilled by doing what you are doing, because this is what you are suited to do. And in this scenario, when we are not programmed, well, in one sense programmed, but when we know how to do this, how to be present, we will also be able to reflect this in our personal relationship. Because again, when we're programmed, when we're goal-oriented, as you said, I'm meeting with each other, with somebody else, and I think, what goal I can achieve by dealing with him. And by putting goal over the person, you are denying his personality. So there is no personal relationship, because you only want to achieve the goal, and you use the person as an instrument to achieve your goal. But if you learn how to work by investing your heart into the work, into the present, what you're doing, then when you happen to meet with somebody, you will also do the same with this person. You will invest your intelligence, your heart into the relationship with this person, and you will not destroy your relationship and yourself by being too much obsessed with the desire to achieve certain goal. People, they're running for these goals, but what is the result? They're frustrated at the end. Even though they may achieve their goals, but what is the use? Ultimately, they are not fulfilled, because they spend their whole life running behind the goals and not really living a fulfilled life at present. So that's...
Hey Krishna, thank you for the class, it was really sweet. And I just had a question. You were talking about deeper relationships, and you brought up the example of, I can't remember who, but a Prabhu who had a brahmachari
It
spoke.
doesn't matter.
And so he was crying out of separation, right? And maybe with devotees it's different, but usually when we see this kind of attachment in relationships, it feels really unhealthy. So I guess, can you explain like that?
See, there is a fine line between the attachment and love. They look similar, but it's at the same time they are completely different by nature. Attachment is when you're attached to somebody, but you really want to use this person. You're attached to him, but you're attached to him because he or she gives you some pleasure. You're not attached to him as an individual person with his or her free will. You're attached to somebody who is just, there, and you are trying to squeeze him or her out for your personal benefit. But love means that there is a person who is completely independent on you or of you, and you still love him. You have deep relationship with him, but you're not trying to use him, but you're just enjoying by being with him, by playing with him. When the relationship become deep, they become the relationship of play. It's a very enjoyable sort of two independent and unpredictable people who are enjoying by being unpredictable to each other and who are playing with each other. Whereas when you attach to somebody, you really want to force him to do what you want to do, you impose upon him some sort of behavior, and if he or she behaves in a different way, you become angry and you don't like it. Like when parents are attached to their children, they want their children to be what they want them to be. They don't want their children to be what the children want to be. They want to, they have to be lawyers or doctors, and the children don't want to be lawyers or doctors. They have a different nature. But that's what attachment means. Attachment means you impose upon somebody else your own concept of him, and as long as he is doing how you want him to do, you like him, you attach to him, and if he dares to act differently, then you will not cry, out of separation. You drive him away or her away. It's a different thing, although it looks like the same, but love makes you free, gives you the feeling that you're a free person, and you're free in this relationship. Attachment makes you a slave of relationship. You feel that you're not, I've been in such relationship. You always feel that, somebody wants to put some guilt trip on you, you're not behaving the way you're supposed to behave according to his or her wishes and this and that, and you always feel very uncomfortable in this. And you just want to get out of this. And this person say, how you dare to get out of this? I'm so attached to you, I love you. He doesn't love you, or she doesn't love you. It's just, it's just some trip. It's not healthy. This is not healthy. But when two persons are deeply in love with each other, and they have deep relationship, they feel freedom, complete freedom. So that's the difference, and that's very rare, unfortunately, especially nowadays. But yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the class. I have a question. If we see a person that behave or say something disrespectful for person like who she should respect, can we help somehow to this person not to do this?
Again, if somebody does what?
Behave unrespectful or say something
unrespectful
to other person.
Well, if you have influence over this person, you can help, but respect is not an easy thing nowadays. Should not be taken for granted, because especially of this, social media and things like this, where people feel completely free to say nasty things, which they will not even be able to say in person to each other. But we can definitely, the main thing which we can do always, we should be respectful ourselves, because when we meet with other people, we learn from each other. And if we see, if the majority, if we come to a little society or some community where everyone is respectful to each other, people will have a hard time to manifest disrespect, because they will immediately feel this norm, this norm in the society, that here people respect each other, and they will try to behave also in a respectful way. So the best way to help such people is to create the atmosphere where everyone respects each other, and then they will learn from this atmosphere, and they will actually understand how beautiful it is, how joyful it is to be in the society where everyone is respectful to each other.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Please, let's give a round of applause. We pray you come back again and again to Bhakti Center to be with us.
Thank you.
Have a few announcements for everyone. Maharaj was really emphasizing in his talk that someone like Radhanath Swami can have a very deep relationship with everyone, and we should also try to follow in his footsteps to make everyone that we meet, to respect them, to remember their name, and to develop a relationship with them, but that it's actually essential to have small groups of people that meet regularly to form those deeper relationships, because we're limited living entities who, we can only have such deep relationships with so many people. So we've been, our community care department here has been developing this initiative of home programs, home sanghas, and community groups. There's two different things: community groups where people can read a book together and discuss regularly, and then also home programs where a devotee actually hosts other devotees, the same group, at least once a month at their home regularly, and to do kirtan together and read shastra together and take prasadam together, but also develop very deep friendships. So if anyone is interested in getting involved in that and hosting a home program or joining a home program, you can come see me after the talk. And just a few more announcements before we break for a lovely prasadam dinner that was cooked with love by Subhadra Priya. Is Subhadra Priya here? Did she leave? So she cooked this at her home and brought it here tonight as an offering of love for all of us. If you're not on the temple newsletter or temple WhatsApp, where we give regular news about programs like this and other initiatives at Bhakti Center, you can sign up on our website at the bottom of the homepage for the temple newsletter. The temple WhatsApp, you can come and see me. We have these kind of programs regularly, and every Sunday we have Bhagavat Shravanam, which is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., which is like our devotee sangha, our weekly devotee sangha, where we study shastra together on different topics. We have kirtan and we have lunch. So that happens every Sunday except this Sunday because it's Christmas. So please come. Also, if you're interested in volunteering, getting more involved at Bhakti Center, you can also come and see me after the program and I can connect you. And we have a program on New Year's Day, not New Year's Eve, from 5 to 7 p.m. where it's a family. It's great to bring kids. We're having kirtan and games and different ways to engage with families for New Year's Day. And Brajarani, did you want to make your announcement? This is Brajarani, who is part of our leadership team.